Hello and welcome to another video. So this video will be kind of short because I am kind of, overwhelmed with college stuff and Christmas is coming up, but I wanted to make a little short video for you guys. So here are 4 random things about Freud that are pretty gross and sexist. I'll be reading these in no particular order of grossness or sexismness, just completely random. And also a little heads up, this is going to be Freud, so if you're uncomfortable with hearing about trauma and sexual violence and those kinds of things, then, maybe, keep that in mind. Anyway, let's just, jump right into it. And with that said, the first thing I want to talk about is the 5 psychosexual stages of development. So this is one of his more known concepts, and he states that children go through 5 different stages of sexual development. So already it's getting kind of gross, but let's go over what these stages are. So the first stage is the oral stage. This is when the child seeks pleasure through the mouth, i.e. sucking on things. The second stage is the anal phase. Man, just saying these things out loud kind of grosses me out a little bit. So this is when the child derives pleasure anally by pooping. The third stage is the phallic stage, and man does Freud love his phalluses. More about that later. This happens when the child is discovering their private parts and seeks pleasure by touching them. Then the fourth stage is the latent state, where the child does not seem to seek any pleasure whatsoever until they reach the 5th stage, which is the genital state. This is when the child or young adult is now desiring good old intercourse. So these stages all range from infancy to adulthood. The first stage starting when the child is a newborn, the anal stage between the ages 1 to 3, the phallic one between 3 to 6, and then the latent stage is from then up until puberty. The final genital state is from puberty and continues on through the rest of adulthood. Freud then claimed that an individual must go through all of these stages to become a fully developed person, and if there were any conflict that arose during any of these stages, the person in question would then become fixated on that stage, which then led to behavioral and emotional problems in adulthood. Smoking could be one example of this, as Freud would presume the person addicted to smoking did not successfully go through the oral stage as a child. So, what is gross about this is that Freud is linking sexuality with childhood, when those things should never even be used in the same sentence. There wouldn't be an issue if Freud just kind of talked about various stages that children went through, but the fact that he's linking them to some sort of sexual development, it is what is creeping me out a lot about it. So then this kind of leads on to a specific case that I want to talk about that is deeply problematic, and this is the Dora case, and also number 2 on this list. So Dora is a pseudonym that was used in this case, but I will refer to her as that name. Dora was sent to Freud as a teenager after having symptoms of hysteria. Hysteria was just something that women at this time would just be diagnosed with when they either showed signs of mental problems or, just didn't do whatever they were told. So what was going on with Dora, though, was that her father had a mistress that was referred to as Frau K, and her father was trying to set up a deal with this woman's husband, Herr K, that Herr K will get Dora if he, the dad, in return gets Frau K. Dora was 18 when she was sent to Freud, but this weird situation had been going on for quite a while at this point. Dora obviously felt like she was nothing more but a pawn to be traded with as her father pleased, and she was under a lot of pressure from her father to be docile and do what she's told, which was to start a relationship with this Herke. So Freud's interpretation of this situation was that Dora developed these hysterical symptoms because she was in fact suppressing her sexual desire that she ought to feel for Herke. Because of the Oedipal complex, another rather famous theory of Freud, that states that children go through a phase where they romantically desire their parent, Dora must have had feelings for her father at some point, but he had greatly disappointed Dora by starting an affair with another woman, which then compels Dora to pretend that she hates him. Herke is also a representation of her father, so Dora's repression of her sexual desire for Herke is therefore a hysterical reaction as well as an Oedipal reaction. So because of this, Freud's treatment of Dora came down to him trying to force her to confess her repressed desire for Herke. There's one event in particular that Freud wrote about when Herke managed to trick Dora to be alone with him when she was 14. And Freud writes that Herke suddenly clasped the girl to him and pressed a kiss upon her lips. This was surely just the situation to call up a distinct feeling of sexual excitement in a girl of 14 who had never before been approached. But Dora had at that moment a violent feeling of disgust, tore herself free from the man, and hurried past him to the staircase and from there to the street door. Freud also writes, instead of the genital sensation which would certainly have been felt of a healthy girl in such circumstances, Dora was overcome by disgust. The discussions that Freud have with Dora also consist of Freud trying to get Dora to open up about her sexual fantasies over and over again. Another psychoanalyst, Jacques Lacan, claimed that Freud identifies with Herke, which is why he's so obsessed with trying to make Dora accept a relationship with the man. So this is incredibly creepy for obvious reasons. First of all, according to Freud, a normal reaction when a grown man tries to assault you when you're 14 is to be aroused. That's honestly disgusting. Second of all, the correct treatment for this person is to force her to accept that she is in fact attracted to this man and is just lying to herself. That is just bizarre. And lastly, that Freud is just making this girl tell him all of her sexual thoughts and fantasies, which is honestly just kind of gross. I agree with Jacques Lacan on this one. I think Freud was just identifying himself with this Herke and just had a hots for this poor girl. So number 3 on this list of gross Freud things has to do with his daughter, Anna Freud, and his views on lesbians. So Anna Freud followed in her father's footsteps and also pursued a career in psychoanalysis. In a paper she released soon after her graduation, we learned that her father frequently did analytic sessions with Anna, in which she was prompted to talk about her sexual fantasies, some of them involving her father. So, that's also really creepy and gross, and I just wanted to mention that because, what the fuck, Freud? But yeah, Anna was also thought to be gay and had a 50-year-long relationship with Dorothy Burlingham, who was also a psychoanalyst and was also the heir to the founder of Tiffany's. So, Sigmund Freud's view on homosexuality was split, as he once famously wrote in a letter to a mother who wanted her gay son to be treated by Freud, "Homosexuality is assertedly no advantage, but it is nothing to be ashamed of. No vice, no degradation. It cannot be classified as an illness. We consider it to be a variation of the sexual function, produced by a certain arrest of sexual development. Many highly respectable individuals of ancient and modern times have been homosexuals. Several of the greatest men among them, Plato, Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, etc. It is a great injustice to persecute homosexuality as a crime, and a cruelty too. So that's all well and good, but he also claimed that lesbianism was immoral and a gateway to mental illness. This was because Freud viewed women as less moral than men and needed either a father or a husband in their life to keep them in check. Lesbianism was therefore immoral, as homosexual women tended not to marry, for obvious reasons. So, why are women seen as less moral than men, according to Freud? Well, that takes me to number 4 on the list, which is penis envy. So, you've probably heard this term before, and what it is the female version of the castration anxiety. A brief explanation of castration anxiety is that boys and men are controlled by either a conscious or unconscious fear of losing their penis. And this fear makes men have a more developed superego than women. The superego is, according to Freud, the part of the mind that controls morality. In brief, men are more moral than women because they have a penis. So, penis envy is the female version of this castration anxiety. Because girls and women have no penis, they have no fear of being castrated, and therefore they have no reason to act within the moral framework of society. Freud also talked about penis envy in adult women and how this is what spurs women into wanting to have children, as the want of having a penis will manifest itself into wanting to birth a baby boy. Basically, if she can't have her own penis, at least she can make one in the womb. Yeah, so that is some theory, huh? Obviously the human sense of morality is stored solely in the testicles, and a woman yearning to give birth to a baby girl is literally unheard of. By the way, if you couldn't tell by the tone of my voice, I was being sarcastic. This theory is insane, and the fact that it was even believed for a second by other scholars just shows how fucked up society can be. And that, my friends, concludes my list of random things that is gross about Freud. I really hope you enjoyed this short little video, and if you did, make sure you hit that like button. And I would also really appreciate it if you would subscribe to this channel if you want to see more of my videos. Also, please do comment below if you have any gross Freud trivia that you would like to share with the group. And with that, I will see you again next time. Bye!